as that ordinance. And I didn't know if anybody was here anticipating a short-term rental issue coming up tonight. So I just wanted to pass that information on, and we'll get on with the meeting. We have some fine Eagle Scouts, and I'm going to ask them if they would come up to the podium and lead everyone in the Pledge of Allegiance. Gentlemen, whenever you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, young man. Mr. Groby.
Got it? Okay. Tonight, Chair, I'd like to introduce Pastor Paul Irwin from the Village Lacombe Church. The pastor is my personal pastor, and of all the highlights he's done, he did one to me that I'll explain at the end. But Pastor Paul Irwin has been a lifelong resident of the state of Louisiana, growing up in Jefferson Parish and residing in our St. Tammany Parish for these past 40 years. He's married to Miss Peggy, who is a flight attendant for the Southwest Airlines system, and they currently live in the Western Glen subdivision in Covington. He's worked in the automotive parts business for 20 years before changing careers. He attended college at night, utilizing Delgado and UNO before graduating with a master's degree from Concordia Seminary in 2007. He has served as a pastor at the Village Church in Lacombe for the past 12 years. Notable exceptions to that career is that church and this pastor really go out of their way. They partner with Habitat for Humanity for local builds, the Samaritan Center in Mandeville, the Mount Olive Feeding Ministry, Youth Services Bureau, Chief Soiree, the St. Tammany Project Christmas, and St. Tammany Parish School System Special Olympics. The feeding ministry of the church has fed over 20,000 people. They have served jambalaya to other Louisiana dishes after floods and hurricanes throughout Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, and Oklahoma. This feeding ministry has also taken them to college campuses in Baton Rouge, Selma, Alabama, Austin, Texas, St. Louis, Missouri, to show the students that they can make a difference in community by using their talents to serve. He also has become a health and fitness advocate. Once tipping the scales at over 450 pounds, his journey to a healthier lifestyle has led him to finish half and full marathons and half and full Ironman triathlons. You may find him riding or running on the trace at the gym at Stone Creek. He hopes to use his continuing journey and experiences to help others with their journey. And if I talk any longer, I'm going to pass a basket for the food thing. But the crowning thing that I think, in my opinion, this pastor's done is he baptized me 2 years ago, and I'm very happy with that. Pastor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if I can live up to the hype, as they say. First, I must admit that I've been guilty that I've never attended a council meeting, and for that I apologize. That's like an American not voting, and I'm sorry for that. So please accept my apologies, and especially on this day, on June 6th. It's as the Scouts led us in the pledge, I had the chance to visit Normandy this past year, and it's one of the most humbling things to walk the sands and see the cemetery at Omaha Beach. So thank you for allowing me this honor. Thank you, Madam President. I'm not sure how to address everyone officially, but Madam President and council members. So just a simple prayer. Well, I should say simple. Unlike Jake, if we talk a little bit longer, we can pass the collection plate. All right, we pray. Dear Heavenly Father, nothing in this world ultimately works unless it honors you and is blessed by you. We pray for our nation daily, that we might be a people whose hearts are turned towards you in faith and whose lives are turned towards others in service in your name. To know love is to know the God who is love. To have life is to know the God who gives life to all. And to know lasting peace is to know the Prince of Peace who came into this world to save. With awe and wonder, we lift up our hearts and minds in prayer to you this evening, praying for our country, our president, our military, our leaders, for our governor, our mayors, our council president and members, and all of our public servants, our business owners gathered, our families, and our people, O Lord. We pray this day for all those in high positions that they would be people of character, of honor, and of wisdom. And we also pray that above all, that those elected to serve and fulfill the duties of their office do so, that we might have a peaceful and just society, one that affords life and liberty to all who pursue it diligently and faithfully. We pray for strength and courage to be neighbors to others the way that you are a friend to us. And we pray for opportunities and wisdom to love others as we ourselves have been loved by you. And Father, you sent your Son Jesus, who left his position of power in heaven to be born into this world, to live life in our place, to die a death that is the payment for this world's sin, and to give us eternal life as a gift now and forever. May that motivate our prayer and our service to our friends, to our enemies, to our brothers and sisters in the faith, and to our neighbors in this parish. Give us strength to be people constantly in prayer, seeking you, always available for service, and bold in our witness of the God who is at work in the world to save. And in the name of Jesus we pray this. Amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Paul. Yes, ma'am.
To remember our beloved Leah Chase, who passed away recently, the queen of Creole cuisine, as she's known. She was born and raised right here in St. Tammany Parish, and not everybody knows that, but she tells wonderful stories about her life in Madisonville and how much they loved there. So we will miss her, and I just wanted to mention her tonight and her contribution to our entire state and our nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Dean? Here. Mr. Fitzgerald? Here. Mr. Thompson? Here. Mr. Toledano? Mr. Tanner? Here. Mr. Belisario?
Here.
Mr. Lorino?
Here.
Mr. Groby? Here. Mr. Canulet? Here. Ms. O'Brien? Here. Mr. Stefanczyk? Mr. Bender? Here. Ms. Blanchard? Mr. Smith? Here. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we get started, I'll just read a couple of things, public comment. Public comments, anyone in the audience that wants to come and make a public comment on any agenda item that we're discussing has 3 minutes. The time is 3-minute limit. It's established for each member of the public wishing to speak for or against an item on the agenda, except our appeals. Appeals speaking time per side is 10 minutes, 3 minutes rebuttal, and 2 minutes conclusion. I just wanted to let everyone know. And anyone wishing to speak, please fill out a card if you have not already for which direction you want to speak on the subject. So, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our Employee of the Month is a little unusual tonight because we have 3. We're building those numbers up, but you'll understand why when I ask them to come forward. It's Dennis Hickey, Lance Terrio, and Gemma Barry. Would you all come up, please? Thanks, guys. Thank you. Under normal circumstances, the Code Enforcement Department would have been comprised of 7 officers tasked with the inspection and enforcement of parish codes. But as of recent budget restraints, Code Enforcement has been reduced to only 3 officers to serve the entire parish of St. Tammany. And Code Enforcement officers Dennis Hickey, Lance Terrio, and Jim O'Berry are dependable, reliable, and trustworthy, and they understand how to work well with the public to resolve any issue. And Dennis Hickey and Lance Terrio are charged with investigating general code enforcement complaints, including junk, trash, and debris, high grass, inoperable vehicles, and harborage of vermin, in addition to building permit and zoning violations. And whereas whereas Jim O'Berry is charged with conducting single-family residential drainage inspections on new construction, as well as investigating drainage complaints for adverse impact due to excessive or poorly placed fill and obstructions of parish drainage. And whereas Jim O'Berry has conducted an astonishing 1,210 drainage inspections, as well as investigated 62 separate alleged violations in the four-month period from January 1 to April 30th, 2019, successfully closing 50 of those cases. Whereas together the team of Dennis Hickey, Lance Terrio, and Jim O'Berry has been I'm sorry, I missed one. Thank you. Thank you very much. I missed some numbers. Thank you. And let me go back. Dennis Hickey and Lance Terrio have investigated 483 separate violations in the four-month period that I mentioned before, and successfully closed 400 of these cases. So thank you for letting me go back to mention those numbers because they are important. So together the team of Dennis Hickey, Lance Terrio, and Jim O'Berry has been able to take on the work of the entire department and has accomplished an extraordinary number of inspections. These men are exceptional employees and have performed their duties in an exemplary manner. We're proud to have them on our team. Therefore, I, Patricia Brister, as president of St. Tammany, do hereby recognize the hard work and accomplishments of Dennis Hickey, Lance Terrio, and Jim O'Berry as employees of the month for June 2019. And I certainly encourage all employees of St. Tammany Parish to thank them for their contributions and commitment to St. Tammany Parish. They've done amazing work in this period of time. Thank you guys so much for everything you did. Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. That's an exceptional team of men.
Well, you know, Madam President, they do a fantastic job, and it was very important what you said in the very beginning, that that staff went from 7 to 8 or 9 down to what we have now.
Yeah.
And we get many calls from residents that want things, and we have to tell them that they'll get there, but they always get there, and they always do a good job. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My next proclamation, if I could go on with the few things I have tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
I would ask the Chattahoochee tribe of Bayou Lacombe to come forward, please, for their proclamation. It's not well known that we do have an Indian tribe in our wonderful parish, and they've been there for a very long time and have done some great things for their community. So I wanted to read this proclamation tonight for them. Thank you, guys. Y'all come on up. Thanks. Whereas St. Tammany Parish has been significantly influenced by Native American and indigenous peoples who have contributed to the diversity of its culture and environment, and whereas the Chattahoochee people of the Choctaw tribe and their descendants have settled along the bayous and waterways of what is present-day Lacombe for generations. And whereas the rich heritage of the Choctaw of Bayou Lacombe has influenced all aspects of the quality of life residents of St. Tammany enjoy, and St. Tammany Parish government would like to recognize the numerous cultural, artistic, and historical contributions of this tribe at Bayou Lacombe. Now, therefore, I, Patricia Brister, as president of St. Tammany, do hereby proclaim June 6, 2019 as Chattahoochee Tribe of Bayou Lacombe Day, and encourage residents to recognize the positive impact that this tribe has made on the history and the culture of our community, and I thank them personally. thank you all for being here and what you do every day. Let's take a picture with everybody. Can you all kind of gather in so Ronnie can get your picture? Thank you. Did you want to say a couple words?
Yeah, you want to speak?
Yes, I can. Okay. There you go.
First of all, I'd like to say good evening to everyone. I am Principal Chief of Nebe Yome, Chief of the Chata-Ogla Nation, and we gladly accept, of course, the proclamation. Just to let y'all know, we were here pre-colonial times, and we have been around a long time. And we're just still here, and glad that we are able to be recognized now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So next, Mr. Chairman, I would ask Raylyn Stevens to come forward, as well as Leslie Long. And I think Laura and Annie are here too, Leslie. So there you are. Y'all come up while we introduce. Raylyn Stevens is Director of Finance for the City of Gretna. Gretna government, and she is here to present an award to our finance department from the Government Finance Officers Association. So I will let her explain it much better than I just did. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam President, distinguished council members. The Government Finance Officers Association of Louisiana was formed in 1983 to enhance and promote the professional management and financial practices of individuals and elected officials who work for a governmental unit at the local, state, and federal level. The GFOA of Louisiana offers programs and services that contribute to an individual's career and personal development by offering education, training, and leadership involvement. As a component of the GFOA of the United States and Canada, professional achievements are recognized through a variety of national award programs. Earning these national awards enhances a government's credibility in financial management and may have a positive impact with long-term debt obligations. One such award is the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting Program. This award acknowledges governments that adhere to sound principles and reporting practices in their combined annual financial report, we commonly refer to as the CAFR. I am honored to present this award to the St. Tammany Parish Department of Finance. The St. Tammany Parish Department of Finance has been awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financing Reporting by the GFOA of the United States and Canada for 15 consecutive years, with the most recent submission being the 2017 CAFR. This recognition comes just weeks after business analysis from Standard & Poor's, referred to as S&P, gave a double A+ rating on the parish's bonds issued for the purpose of improving roads and drainage. This is the second highest bond rating available through the S&P. Additionally, the bond rating for the Sales Tax District Number 3 earned a rating upgrade for the second time within 5 years. On behalf of the Governmental Finance Officers Association of Louisiana, I would like to congratulate the Parish Council and the Finance Department. I would also like to give special recognition to the Chief Financial Officer, Leslie Long, the Assistant Director of Finance, Annie Perkins, and the Senior Accounting Manager, Laura Lyons. It is also worth noting that Ms. Long was instrumental in promoting the parish to prepare the first CAFR for the fiscal year 2003 and has prepared all award-winning CAFRs since. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Madam President, would you all stay up there just for 1 second, please?
Yes, thank you.
You know, this is the second time in just a few months that this branch of your government that you operate, the financial part of this government, has been recognized, awarded, and given high honors. And as we sit up here, everyone says, you know, the council did a great job. Well, I'm going to be right up front with you. I didn't tell Miss Leslie Long anything, okay? I sit here in amazement all the time of her staff when they come and make presentations to all of us with her knowledge. But you know what's really funny to me? When we received the last award, Miss Sarah Pagonis wrote a nice article. I still have it. And it's amazing to me that that's not covered in greater detail by some others, and some others that always criticize St. Tammany Parish. And I don't have to mention who they are. And that's okay, because that's the American way. But also the American way is when someone does the right thing and has an A+ and receives $4 million more than what we asked for because of what Ms. Long and her team has done, they should even say thank you. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of this, Ms. Long, and your team, and you do a great job. So I'm going to stand up and give you a round of applause.
And I was just going to say one thing, because I attend the meeting, so I usually get most of the credit. But sincerely, you know, Laura, Annie, and the rest of the finance staff work very hard. And, you know, certainly these awards are a credit to the work that they do. And I'm just their leader. But thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam President.
One more, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for those wonderful words, because they do work hard all the time. I've got one more little thing, since we're talking about awards. This is a surprise to everyone, too, because it's not on the agenda, if I might. So, Dr. Smythe, Angela, and Tim, would you bring that beautiful award up here so we can show it off? There we go. As we all know, we've been through some trying times in our environmental issues. So that's why I think it's so important tonight just to read one quick little comment about an award that was just won by them. So I'd like to take a moment to recognize some key staff members, Dr. DeEtte Smythe, Angela Gagliano, and Tim Brown, for their forward-thinking, decentralized management program, and acknowledge their receipt of an Environmental Leadership Award, hold that up because it's beautiful, from the Department of Environmental Quality last week. The program reduced pollution and increased septic system compliance in the targeted subdivisions in the Bayou Liberty watershed through the inspection and repair of home septic systems, as well as outreach and education on the proper installation, maintenance, and use of these systems. This program resulted in a drastic improvement in overall water quality and a 400% reduction in biochemical oxygen demand. Based on the results of this program, we're moving forward with implementing it in other parts of the parish to improve the water quality and overall quality of life across the board. There were a total of 50 submittals made to the state. Only 12 received awards. St. Tammany Parish received the only Outstanding Achievement Award. So please join me in congratulating DeEtte, Angela, and Tim for all of their hard work. Believe me, they do work hard.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all for making us proud. Thank you for all the time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
We have number 4, Mr. Balisaro.
Good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to give these certificates of recognition to Eagle Scouts. I've done this off and on for several years, and I'm good with it. What I'm going to do, since there's three, the plaques are identical in wording, except when you come to their project. Is this mic on? Okay, all right. I'll start off first with certificate of recognition to Patrick Joseph Carroll. I know his mom for years. It's a good lady. She works at Stark. And so let me just start, okay. The Parish Council desires to acknowledge the youth of this parish for their positive achievements and accomplishments. In particular, those who choose to remain in school, participate in their religious convictions, are morally and community conscious and active to pursue productive lifestyles. With the constant media pressure exposure given to the negative youth behavior, it is time we acknowledge the younger generation of this parish who are honest, law-abiding, and promote positive attitudes. The Parish Council is proud to recognize a young man who has not been overcome by negative peer pressure, one who knows that perseverance and commitment can achieve goals. A young man who has been active and an active member of the Boy Scouts of America Troop 365 and completed their requirements worthy of the rank of Eagle Scout. I'll start with Patrick. Patrick has earned a total of 29 merit badges. He is a 2018 graduate of Pope John Paul II Catholic High School. He is currently a student at ULL in Lafayette and pursuing a degree in college engineering and electrical engineering. His Eagle Scout project was repairing and renovating the gazebo and garden of angels for St. Margaret Mary Catholic Church in Slidell. This renovation helped to create a beautiful place of prayer for those in the city of Slidell area. Thank you. Mr. Pat, would you come up, please? Please stand here, okay?
Jane, turn around.
Oh, okay.
Take a picture.
I'm doing all three. All right, thank you. James, this is James Christian Branton. James has earned a total of 26 merit badges. He is a 2018 graduate of Pearl River High School. He is currently a student at ULL, pursuing a degree in the College of Anthropology and Archaeology. His Eagle Scout project was assembling and restoring two 1903 Springfield drill rifles for the Pearl River High School NJROTC in Pearl River, Louisiana. James? Last but not least is Ty Sterling Gilmore. Ty has earned a total of 28 merit badges. He is in the 2019 graduating class of Pope John Paul II Catholic High School. His Eagle Scout project was building and installing bird habitat boxes for Camp Selvin Nature Park in Slidell, Louisiana. He spoke with some of the rangers at the park, and they mentioned the need for habitats for the smaller migratory birds. Thank you. I've asked him to see if one of them is willing to speak. If you will, please come up.
I would just like to thank you all for your time and the award.
Thank you.
Ms. Pat? The parents want to come up, please do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Try and move it.
Never going to get that picture.
Mike, the reason I did is these guys have gone through this process from the beginning all the way through.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Jane. Members of the council, I'm going to ask for personal privilege for a second and ask Ms. Bonnie Eads of the North Shore Business Council to come up and address the council and parish president. Ms. Bonnie?
Hi, good evening. My name is Bonnie Eads. I'm the Executive Director with the North Shore Business Council. With me here this evening is Paul Barcelona. Paul is, together with Shelby LaSalle, co-chaired the NBC's Infrastructure Committee. And Shelby sends his apologies that he's unable to make it this evening, but wanted to share that with you. This committee's purpose is to work to identify and prioritize infrastructure needs and funding that represent barriers to economic growth within our region by providing specific recommendations and action plans. We thank you, Chairman and Council members, for the opportunity to publicly share a resolution by the NBC's Board of Directors regarding the Highway 190 Super Street project. This resolution is addressed to Dr. Sean Wilson, Secretary of the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development, St. Tammany Parish Council, and Parish President Pat Brister. The resolution reads as follows. The North Shore Business Council, acting through its Board of Directors, adopts the following resolution as a statement of principle of the organization. The NBC would like to publicly acknowledge the innovative Highway 190 Super Street project, construction taking place on 190 from the I-12 junction to the Claiborne Hills overpass in Covington. It's our understanding that the Super Street concept with the use of J-turns has been implemented successfully in Lafayette and in other states for more than 20 years now. An extensive North Carolina State University study showed that it results in faster travel times, reduced automobile collisions, and reduced personal injuries. It does appear that the Super Street concept is being successfully implemented for the Highway 190 corridor as well. While the project is not yet complete, we have already experienced significant traffic flow improvements in the thoroughfare as a result of the new J-turns that were recently installed. With over 60,000 cars traveling U.S. Highway 190 each day, the J-turn design appears to be an effective approach for reducing congestion by optimizing capacity of our existing roadway. As CEOs representing more than 60 businesses and thousands of employees in our region, we appreciate the positive impacts the project will have on the economy and quality of life in the area. This was adopted the third day of June 2019, signed by Rhonda Bagby, Chairwoman of the North Shore Business Council. In closing, we would like to thank the Parish Administration for their relentless work that went into obtaining the $25 million federal grant for the I-12 widening project in Covington. This effort required constant and deliberate collaboration with federal and state officials to recognize the serious congestion and outdated bridges on the I-12 corridor that has been increasingly detrimental to our economy and our quality of life. We'd also like to thank the Louisiana DOTD officials who have been working around the clock to accommodate the Highway 190 traffic flow during the construction, which often requires them to work nights instead of days. Council members and Parish President Brister, we sincerely appreciate the hard work and public service each of you do every day to help promote a better quality of life for the residents of St. Tammany Parish. Thank you for allowing us an opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you, Ms. Eads. I appreciate it, and thank you to the North Shore Business Council for their support, and I know President Brister and the council really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we'll go to appointments. Number one, resolution to appoint Nino Covington to replace Sonny Schwing on the Board of Directors of Parish Fire Protection District Number 12, Districts 1, 2, 3, and 5. Mr. Fitzgerald? Second by Mr. Taladano. Yes, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Thank you. Number two, resolution to appoint Catherine Diamont to fill the vacant North Shore Lodging Association position on the Board of Commissioners for the Parish Tourism and Convention Commission. It's a parish-wide. Mr. Smith? Motion by Mr. Smith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Palacero. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Thank you. Number 3, resolution to appoint Danny Burns to replace Frank Fradrell, who resigned, to the Board of Commissioners for Parish Drainage District Number 5. Mr. Bender?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Originally, I had our staff place this on the agenda for tonight as a resignation by Mr. Frank Vandrell. Unfortunately, Mr. Vandrell was very ill, and last week he passed away. So I just want to say, Drainage District 5, once it protects 3 main subdivisions in Oak Harbor. Once the development was built out to a certain level, that board turned no longer development people, but towards the citizens that I and we appointed to Drainage District 5 board. All of these citizens are residents of those 3 subdivisions. Mr. Frank served as the treasurer for the last 7 years. Not only I know him, but we've had times when I know Terry's come to meetings with me, Shannon, others, fine gentlemen, all clean audits, all very well-kept books, and with the amount of money they have, they do a great job of maintaining, and Mr. Frank is a big part of that. So we've sent flowers paid for by individuals to Mrs. Vandrell, and I just wanted to say to the council, I certainly express my condolences, and I'm sure my colleagues do as well, to Ms. Sandra Vandrell. So with hope for the future, I'll make a motion to appoint Danny Burns to.
Second.
Second by Ms. Blanchard. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Thank you. And Mr. Bender, we all have our prayers and wishes to the family, and, you know, there's so many people that serve St. Tammany Parish and just do it from their heart, and sorry to hear that, sir. Thank you. Okay, we'll go to the consent calendar now. Any items not pulled from the consent calendar automatically approved in whole by one vote. Items pulled from the consent calendar are discussed and voted upon individually. A majority vote of the entire council, 8, is required to adopt the consent calendar. We have items pulled, ordinance for introduction, ordinance calendar number 6177, number 1. Number 2, ordinance calendar number 6180. Number 12, ordinance calendar number 6190. Ordinance calendar number 13, 6191. Get record, yeah, okay. Is there any other ordinances that, well, let me go to the resolutions and do them all at one time here. Resolutions number C-6177. 6117. Number 6, C-6122. number 7, C-6123. That's the items that we have pulled for tonight. Mr. Dean? Mr. Fitzgerald?
None.
Mr. Thompson?
None.
Mr. Toledano?
None, thank you.
Mr. Tanner?
No, sir.
Mr. Balisaro?
None.
Mr. Groby?
No, sir.
Mr. Canulet?
None.
Ms. O'Brien?
No, thank you.
Mrs. Stefanczyk?
No, sir.
Mr. Bender?
No, sir.
Ms. Blanchard? Mr. Smith?
None.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to have anything pulled that has not submitted a card asking for anything to be pulled as of right now? Anything from legal or anything? Okay. Okay, before we get into the actual, okay, yes, I need a motion to accept all items not pulled. Motion by Mr. Canulet, second by Mr. Balisaro.
Mr. Stefanczyk? Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Okay, before we go into discussion, Mr. Toledano asked if we could move up his 2 appeals as they will not be heard tonight. Does anybody on the council have any problem with that?
No.
Hearing none? Mr. Toledano?
Thank you, Mr. Lorino. Reference appeal number 1, Robert Tronsko. I'm going to move to postpone same.
Motion and second.
You need a motion and a second?
Yeah.
They got it. Got it. Yeah.
Mr. Thompson, seconded.
Okay, Mr. Thompson, second.
Did a beautiful job.
Please vote.
Please vote. I'm waiting for the light.
Yeah.
Mr. Dean, Mr. Fitzgerald, Mr. Tanner? Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Thank you. And, Mr. Lorino. The other item is appeal number 2, also in the name of Robert Tronsko, moved to postpone.
Second by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Blanchard, while we on those, you want to just leave yours right on the way it is? Thank you, ma'am. Okay. We'll go to ordinance for introduction. Ordinance calendar number 6177, ordinance amending the official, parish zoning map to reclassify 1.65 acres from A-4 to I-1, Ward 8, District 14. Mr. Smith.
Postpone.
Motion to postpone by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Stefanczyk. Please vote.
Mr. Smith? Up. Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Thank you. Number 2, ordinance calendar number 6180, ordinance to authorize the office of the parish president to accept dedication and donations of Hunter Lane, Mr. Fitzgerald, but also Mr. Hernandez. You asked to have that pulled?
No.
Carlo?
Here's cards here.
Okay.
6190. This is 6180.
Well, I got it on,
Okay.
it's on mine right there.
Oh.
Okay. I'm just reading what they have in front of me, okay?
Speaker cards.
Wait, there should be 2, though, for 6180.
You got to give me the right ones. You see Carlo written here?
I see speaker.
Okay.
6180.
Okay. All right, okay. 6180, All right. Ordinance calendar 6180, ordinance to authorize the office of Parish President to accept the dedication and donation of Hunter Lane. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Yeah, no, I didn't pull it. I have no comment on it other than I wanted to see it go through naturally.
Well, there's speaker cards from two
Yeah.
people.
We
All right.
have
Good.
Mr. James Towdy. Is there a second? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
David? Did Mr. Thompson second it? Thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. Towdy.
I just wanted to say that we're building a piece of a house right there on Hunter Lane, and thanking Mr. Fitzgerald for coming and talking to us and walking us through this process so that we can do the donation. All of our property owners have come together. We've all signed the petition. We're actually a pretty good group of people together, and we just wanted to thank you and hope that this passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. John Segura.
I just want to thank Mr. Fitzgerald for coming out and talking to us, like Mr. Tardy said. I've been living back there since 2007 and been looking forward to the day when we could ride down the road and not get a car full of dust. So we just thank y'all for taking this up. And we do have a couple of young families in the neighborhood, and they got school children, kids that's getting ready to start school. So thank you all a lot.
Thank you for coming out, sir. Okay, please vote. No vote? Okay, what's that? Okay. Number 12, ordinance calendar number 6190, ordinance to amend the Parish Code of Ordinance, section 6-34. Said no vote on it. They said, what, yeah. Okay. All right, Mr. Colo.
Thank you. Caller Hernandez. I want to alert the public, in particular, those who attend churches, libraries, schools, that this ordinance, which could be adopted at the next council meeting in July, will allow beer and wine to be sold at 300 feet from these facilities, instead of the present 500 feet or foot limitation. State law permits parishes to have more restrictive requirements for the sale of alcoholic beverages. Citizens will need to contact your council members before July 11th if you do not support moving the sale of beer and wine 200 feet closer to churches, playgrounds, etc. Thank you.
Mr. Thompson?
Carlo's right, that's what this amendment does. It changes it from 500 feet back to 300 feet like it used to be years ago. I do have a few little country stores up in the woods around Folsom, and I'm sure Mr. Tanner does too, around Lee Road, that would like to sell Class B alcohol, which is packaged beer and wine. That's it, no drinking on premises or anything like that. It doesn't pertain to ballrooms. So I want to go ahead and move to introduce it.
Motion by Mr. Thompson. Second by Mr. Dean. Please vote. No vote, I'm sorry. No vote on that. Okay.
That's why you leave it every Thursday night early and go drink.
All right.
Smoke a cigar.
Number 13, ordinance calendar number 6191, ordinance to amend 2019 operating budget, amendment number 6. Mr. Paladin?
I'm going to ask Ms. Leslie Long to provide a brief explanation of the same. Right, correct.
Thank you. Ordinance calendar 6191 is a sixth amendment to the operating budget, and it includes an amendment to the Department of Engineering, the Department of Development, Tammany Utilities, and also to recognize the bond proceeds and the debt requirements for the recently issued bonds for Sales Tax District 3.
Mr. Lorino, move for the introduction unless anybody has any questions.
Motion by Mr. Toledano, second by Mr. Tanner.
Thank you, Les.
Okay. Resolutions. Resolutions number 1, CS number 6117, resolution to select a newspaper as the parish official journal, bid number 010-07-17-29-2.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Balisaro. Second by Mr. Toledano. You want me ready?
Leslie, you going to speak on this?
Yes, sir. Resolution C-6117 is to report to you that the Department of Procurement solicited bids for the official journal to begin on July 1st, and the respondent, the farmer, at $2.28 per column inch. That is the same price that we're currently paying this year for the farmer, and they were the only bidder.
Mr. Tanner? Nothing? Okay. All right. Please vote. Yeah.
Please vote.
Mr. Toledano, Mr. Tanner.
Thank you very much.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Resolution number 6, resolution CS number C-6122, resolution to amend ordinance CS number 19-4050, the 2019 grants budget. Mr. Toledano?
Yes, with a brief explanation, Leslie, please.
Yes, sir. C-6122 will recognize 3 new grant awards, one for rural transit operations, for our emergency operations department, and also for a program called Poetry Out Loud.
Please, move for the introduction.
Motion by Mr. Toledano, second by Mr. Thompson.
Resolution.
Yes.
For adoption.
Adoption. Okay. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
It's for adoption.
Yeah.
All right, that's the last one I had. That's the last one you had, right? Okay. All righty, that's the last one that we had on the resolutions.
6123. 6123. Number 7.
Number 7.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Number 7, resolution CS number C-6123, resolution to amend the ordinance CS number 18-3977 to make changes to the 2019 capital improvement budget and capital assets.
A brief explanation, Leslie, please.
Yes, sir. C-6123 is the resolution to identify additional capital projects and make changes. There are 10 road and drainage projects, and there's also 1 grant-funded Safe Haven Master Plan project.
Move for the adoption.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Toledano, second by Mr. Balisaro. Please vote.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mr. Toledano, Mr. Tanner, Mr. Groby, Mr. Smith. Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Okay. We'll go to the appeals. Note, speaking time per side is 10 minutes, 3 minutes rebuttal, 2 minutes conclusion. Appeal number 1 was taken care of. Appeal number 2 was taken care of. We'll go to appeal number 3, Randall and Teresa Crawford, appealing the zoning commission's approval on May 7, 2019 to rezone .43 acres west of Military Road, north of Highway 190, Slidell, from A-2 Suburban District and NC-4 Neighborhood Institutional District to NC-3 Lodging District, NC-5 Retail and Service District, CB-1 Community-Based Facility District, PF-2 Public Facility District, and RO Rural Overlay, Ward 8, District 13. Ms. Blanchard.
I believe the Crawfords want to proceed, or?
Yes. No.
You got 10 minutes.
This is not. I don't know to give the blue card to. I think he was just gonna change some stuff on it. I mean, it sounds good on paper. I just didn't want it like next to me. But long as they put a fence up and so we won't have, I mean, I have grandkids that's outside playing. I don't know who's gonna be in and out. I mean, it's residential against this commercial, and I think he answered some questions for me. Ms. Pat answered. So,
You want me to say?
yeah. So,
You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I just,
Good evening. Thank you, Ms. Crawford, for letting me come to the podium with you.
Just for a moment, this machine doesn't want to work.
There you go.
Okay, now go.
Good.
First time ever, huh?
Well, both of us going back and forth there.
it's crazy.
For the record, I'm Jeff Shane with the Jones Fussell Law Firm, P.O. Box 18.
Excuse me, are you both come to an agreement so you're not splitting 10 and 10?
Correct.
Okay.
Or at least we hope to come to agreement.
Okay.
Yes, sir. P.O. Box 1810 in Covington, 70434. I represent the property owners and the petitioners, Garrett Field LLC, as well as Billy and Gran Sims, who are with me this evening, sitting in the front row. We have worked, I met Mrs. Crawford at the Zoning Commission meeting. I met Mr. Crawford this evening, and we have had some discussions tonight even, thanks to Ms. Blanchard bringing us together. She has carefully watched this request for zoning. So now let me address what I believe are the Crawfords' concerns. The Crawfords live on Military Road, south of and adjacent to the personal residence of Mr. and Mrs. Sims, which is part of the zoning application for this evening. Their current zoning for their personal home of 3.88 acres, 3.837 acres, would change from A2 to NC5. So because they abut this particular portion of the property, they've talked principally about two things. Number one, would the change of zoning to NC5 allow for a freestanding bar, lounge, nightclub? And it is my opinion, and I've consulted with Mr. Fontenot to make sure that he agrees that NC5 would not allow that type use. The other question is that although Mr. and Mrs. Sims intend to continue to live in their home, if in fact they convert their home to what is proposed to be in the future as a spa, that would become a commercial use. And of course, they'd have the NC5 zone. So I've confirmed with Mr. Fontenot, in order to make that home a spa, they would need an occupational license. And in doing so, there would now be a fencing requirement because we would have a commercial use abutting a residential use, which means the entire abutting, or I should say contiguous, the property line between the two parties would have to be fenced. Maybe that was a little awkward, my explanation, but the long and the short of it is we wanted to make an assurance, not only on behalf of the Sims through me, but also that your code will require that if and when this 3.837 acre parcel becomes used as an NC5 property, that there will, number one, be no possibility of a bar, lounge, or nightclub, And number two, there absolutely will have to be fencing between the common property line between the properties. I'd just like to close in saying that my clients have been neighbors of the Crawfords for an awful long time.
Yes.
20-plus years, and we hope and continue to be good neighbors for at least 20 years or more. So I say that so that the spirit is we respect and understand that they live in their residence next door to this property, and that they don't want to have uses and impacts that would be unfair to them. And the Sims understand that, and hopefully these words and your laws should give them that assurance. Is that okay? Thank you.
Ms. Blanchard?
Is it on? Ms. Crawford, are you satisfied? You're comfortable proceeding?
Yes, yes. Long as, I just don't, my grandbabies play. I just don't know how many people are gonna be in and out of this property, with the human trafficking and all that stuff. I don't know who's gonna be in my neighborhood. So, and as long as they have fences, I can, because there's a lot of wooded area, and they take kids. I'm sorry, but, you never know who's gonna take your children. So I work in the school district. I hear different things happen all day to kids, and it just scares me to death,
Thank you. And Mr. Shane, I'm comfortable that the Sims will accommodate them if they do move to commercial with these requests.
Yes,
and the
ma'am. I'm
fencing.
speaking on their behalf, but I consulted with them, and I want you and the council and the Crawfords to know that they will.
Thank you. Then I would make a motion I believe that zoning approved it, to concur with zoning.
Okay. Motion by Ms. Blanchard to approve, and second by Mr. Stefanczyk. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Number
A
4.
motion to introduce the ordinance. Need a second.
Motion by
Michelle.
Mr.
Okay.
Second by Mr. Kenyon. All righty, number 4, Matthew Allen appealing the Planning Commission's approval on April 9, 2019 of the preliminary subdivision review of the preserve at Goodby Lake located north of Highway 1077, east of Tantilla Ranch Road, north of Highway 190 Covington, Ward 1, District 3. Mr. Allen?
Thank you, Chairman Lorino, and thank you, council members. My appeal is not particularly against this individual subdivision. I'm more concerned with proper floodplain management here. The big thing that I'm appealing is that I believe that the engineer, or the gentleman who was speaking at the Planning Commission, misspoke when he stated that the fill mitigation satisfied the requirements for the study of the effects of fill in the floodplains. And that is very much contrary to what FEMA guidance has to offer. First off, the Tchefuncte River has no designated floodway, which is something they do for a lot of rivers, to say you can't build here because this is required for the conveyance of the floodwaters out of the area, which really serves a public benefit. So we have a right to kind of regulate what goes on in the floodplains. My specific argument is they did not satisfy the St. Tammany Parish Ordinance 115-70, number 9, which is in our ordinances as a requirement for St. Tammany Parish to receive federal flood insurance. It's one of the minimum requirements codified in the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 44, Section 63C, Number 10, which reads that you must require, until a regulatory floodplain is designated, that no new construction, substantial improvements, or other development, including fill, shall be permitted within zones A1 through 30 and AE on the community's firm unless it is demonstrated that the cumulative effect of the proposed development, when combined with all other existing and anticipated developments, will not increase the water surface elevation of the base flood by more than 1 foot. And the gentleman at the Planning Commission said that they made sure of that by using the fill mitigation for floodwater storage. Now, as a certified floodplain manager, I've been through a lot of this. I've read tons of papers, and the guidance states, and this is from the National Flood Insurance Program, Floodplain Management Requirements, a study guide and desk reference for local officials, FEMA publication 480. Chapter 5, page 24, says when you do not have a regulatory floodway, you treat the entire floodplain as a floodway, requiring no rise certification so as not to obstruct flood flow, not storage, that's my putting in, and cause increased flooding, and this includes large fill projects, which, 60-home subdivision is a pretty large fill project. Now, the National Flood Insurance Program also has a community rating system, which we qualify for, I think, a 15% reduction in our flood insurance. And they actually talk about the fill mitigation. In Part 430, Higher Regulatory Standards, Criteria for Development Limitations, they say that floodwater storage does not receive as many credit points as no fill, because fill with storage mitigation still impedes flood flow and discharge and can make flooding worse. And it's only worth about approximately half the credit as having no fill limitation, as having a limitation of no fill. Now, back to the floodplain management reference for officials, Chapter 5 goes on to say the certification is consistent with the technical criteria contained in Chapter 5, Hydraulic Analysis of the Flood Insurance Study, Guidelines and Specifications for Study Contractors, FEMA 37, 1995. The Flood Insurance Guidelines, Chapter 5, Section B1, specifies the use of approved hydraulic backstep computer models. And they list several from the Army Corps of Engineers and other places that they can use, but they're very specific, saying that this has to be a computer model studying how putting fill here and the impeding of the flow will back up the water. Imagine y'all are at Old Money Hill, Orlando Pines, or even Blue Bayou, or they're water slides. You put yourself in there, you have the water flowing down, but when you put your body in there, that water gets higher behind you. It helps push it down. That's what fill will do. So storage mitigation is not the appropriate model, as the parish engineer stated at the planning committee. Now, this area is special because it's the boundary of the Chifuncta watershed. Highway 1077 is a very old road dating back to the early 1800s. It was a way for people from Hustler area to get down to Madisonville to go to New Orleans. It was a high area, and all the floods do fill over this. And it releases extra flood water. It acts like a spillway. Y'all seen all the spillway openings to lower the Mississippi. This helps to lower flood heights on the Chifuncta. By blocking it off, you're going to be putting more water going down toward Covington. Now, this whole area is set to be developed. It's below the boundary of urban development. So this study must be done to ensure that you're not increasing the flood heights down to Covington. If you don't require it for this one, we have the 200-acre Providence Park next door that's going to fill in. What are they going to say when you allow this one to go without doing a proper study? They're going to call foul and say, we don't have to do it because you didn't make them do it. And then the next one down the road. And then the next one, this study will never be done. And it will ensure that more floodwaters head downstream toward Covington and not into the Tangipahoa Basin. In closing, I just want to point out Livingston Parish is threatened with losing their flood insurance for not following the required minimum standards by FEMA. And this is a minimum standard to qualify for flood insurance. Now, granted, Livingston Parish's issue is with the rebuilding after the floods. This is to help prevent worse floods. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. I'll get it later. Okay. Mr. Shane. Sorry. Mr. Allen still has three minutes. If he
I didn't know if
needs
there
it.
were any other speakers.
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, for the record, Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm at P.O. Box 1810 in Covington. I represent D.R. Horton, who is the proposed developer of the property that's owned by Mr. Bruno, Robert Bruno, and his family. We come to you this evening asking that you turn down this appeal and affirm the unanimous recommendation of the Planning Commission granting preliminary subdivision approval for a 66 residential lot development on 75 acres. Let me repeat, for a 66 lot development on 75 acres. Some history with regard to this project. In 2014, when this PUD was approved, it could have had a maximum of 229 units. Through the years, the proposal as to how to develop this property, because of wetlands considerations and now because of fill mitigation considerations, the developer has been forced to shrink the density. Most recently, the proposal submitted to the Planning Commission 3 to 4 months ago suggested 91 lots, and staff did not get comfortable that the necessary amount of fill was being mitigated, even with 91 lots. At which point, my client, through his engineer, again, reduced density down to 66 lots. So the first point I want to make to you is that, and I'd like to read to you from the staff comments at the April Planning Commission meeting. First of all, it says that the project first came before the Planning Commission on June 12 of 2018. It was tabled every month until it came up until April of 2019. And it was because the developer and staff did not agree as to how much fill needed to be mitigated in order to build homes on this track. Finally, we determined that we would concur or agree with the engineering department's interpretation of how much fill needed to be mitigated. We revised our plans accordingly. And the staff analysis report reads in pertinent part as follows. The subdivision plans have been revised to comply with the St. Tammany Parish Fill Ordinance. The preliminary plans and hydrologic study have been reviewed by this office, and an inspection was made of the site. It is recommended that preliminary submittal be approved. For those reasons and those reasons alone, a project that couldn't get out of the batter's box much halfway to first base since June of 2018 hit a home run and got a unanimous recommendation by the Planning Commission. And it's because the project has been modified. With all due respect to the comments of Mr. Allen, and I've heard most of those comments in the past, in my view, they do not specifically address the issue that's before you tonight. And that is, has in fact this property owner, through the developer, met the requirements that you have, St. Tammany Parish government, through its laws, to achieve preliminary subdivision approval? In our view, we clearly have. But it's not just our view. It's our view. It's the recommendation of the parish engineering department. It's also the unanimous recommendation of the Planning Commission. I respect the fact that Mr. Allen is a certified floodplain manager, but I would also suggest to you that the issue that's before you this evening is one that is determined by engineers, not just my client's engineer, but your engineers as well. It's their job to review. And to their credit, they reviewed diligently, and for 9 months, I couldn't get out of the batter's box. But now that everyone is on the same page, I only ask that you affirm the approval that was granted by the Planning Commission so that this development can go forward, 66 lots on 75 acres. I would further suggest that the arguments that Mr. Allen are making are arguments that he should be making as a member of the Field Mitigation Committee or should be making as a citizen, because the suggestion that legislation may need to be re-examined or changed is a fair suggestion for any person to make, particularly someone that's a certified floodplain manager. My point is, I understand his message. I do not understand his message as being a valid reason for this preliminary subdivision approval to be overturned. I believe there's a time and a place. Mr. Lorino is the chair of a committee that takes up the discussion with regard to field mitigation, and I believe that committee will have at least one more meeting, as I understand it, at some point in the future. So I don't know that the arguments or suggestions are made necessarily have to hit deaf ears this evening. I just don't feel that this is a reason, a legal reason or a practical reason, that you should consider overturning the preliminary subdivision approval that's been granted for the preserve at Goodby Lakes. With those things having been said, if I have any additional time, I would appreciate reserving it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. I really appreciate Mr. Shane and the developers in reducing the size of this property. And really, this is not about this individual property. This is about good floodplain management and not putting existing citizens at further risk from this and other anticipated. This area is being heavily developed right now. We have this particular subdivision. We have the 200-acre Providence Park. We've had a couple countrysides. There's another one going in down 190. There's one approved off of Joyner Weiner Road, I believe, at the April meeting. This whole area is being developed. And again, this is a spillway. This releases floodwater from the Tchefuncte River system. If we develop this whole property, this whole area along 1077, you're going to be directing millions, tens of millions of gallons of water down toward Covington that would be escaping the system already, and not, which would increase flood heights. By how much, I don't know. He's right, I am not an engineer. I am a citizen speaking here. I'm speaking for a lot of people that have had homes flooded 3 times in the last 3 years. And as a lifelong resident of 40-plus years along the Tchefuncte River, it appears to us that the flood heights are rising. Smaller rainfalls are causing more flooding. And what's the difference? We've been developing this area. Now, the Planning Commission based their approval on inaccurate information from the engineering staff. I've already addressed that here. This is not about fill mitigation. I very much appreciate he did that. But even FEMA says fill mitigation does not count toward flood flow. You can put fill there, water's going to run up and go somewhere else. And if you develop this whole corridor, there's going to be nowhere else for it to go. Also, St. Tammany Parish back in 2009 had a Tchefuncte watershed model done, which seemed to have disappeared. Nobody can seem to find that. I've asked about it, other people have asked about it. But Mr. Shane only talked about fill mitigation, which is only for storage. It's not for the flood flow and the water getting out. Now, the staff comments even said they didn't do any real study on the flows. This is close to 100 square miles north of here that drains into 3 mile across flood area. Their hydrology plan only looked at the rainfall that falls on the place, not that 100-plus square miles of drainage coming through this area. So this is not fill mitigation, and I am speaking as a citizen and resident of the area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Shane?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Thompson?
Me and Mr. Dean were talking before this issue came up. This subdivision was basically approved back in 2008, 9, or 10, and it's been sitting there. It was in Mr. Dean's district at the time. I have this area now, and I'm dealing with all the problems he created for me. But but listen, this, like Jeff said, there was 229 lots on 227 acres at one time, which is a lot. Over the years, it's evolved down to 66 lots on 75 acres. So everything I've heard from both sides tonight, Planning Commission, I move to concur with the Planning Commission.
Second? Second by Mr. Dean. Any other questions? I have a couple. I don't see anyone. Mr. Shane, can you come up? When we get to ordinance for adoption, I have something on the fill mitigation, but that's as we go forward. But as you know, we've been working on that. Mr. Allen's a member of the committee, as you said. But in those meetings, one of the concerns that I've always had is when a resident is building in a floodplain, if there would be some way moving this forward that a builder would give extra notice to a person that is buying that house, that is actually purchasing that house, so that that person would know that he's in a floodplain and he can flood and so forth and so on. And you heard me discuss that a few times at the fill mitigation, and I think that's something moving forward. I just want to know your thoughts on that.
Well, as I've told you,
and I understand you can't give me
no, but I understand your thought and point. And as I've told you, I mean, I think that if the parish determines that certain language needs to be placed on the final subdivision plat that's recorded, or if it decides that certain language should be included in the permits that are issued, building permits that are issued, there may be other ways to provide notification. I think it's going to be difficult to set up a system where homes, which obviously sell over time, over and over and over. I mean, at some point after the house is built, you're not involved other than really making sure that the property continues to adhere to your laws. But as I told you earlier today, and we've discussed this other times publicly and privately, I don't think the private sector is opposed to making sure that the consumer is educated as to what they're buying and what the flood zone might be. Because what I would also suggest is that I think your laws, which are very stringent, and I think for the most part, development, which does a good job, even if it is in a floodplain or flood-prone area, that means that someone has made special attempts to make sure that it's going to be safe and appropriate to have homes in that area. So I think the business community, the development community, is open to having continued dialogue about notification or notice or having information available to the persons themselves that are going to buy and live in homes.
Okay, thank you. Another issue with this property, and as we said, we're moving down the road with the fill mitigation, and I'll be speaking on that in just a few minutes. But as Mr. Thompson said, this project started with a larger, very large number of houses, and it's down to this now. And I kind of disagree that if we allow this one to move forward, that we can't change something for the next one that we do. That's part of the film mitigation work group that will be presenting amendments to that ordinance to this council in the coming months. So I think, for me, it's a smaller number, but that doesn't preclude me from moving forward with my thoughts at the film mitigation work group and stop it because we allowed this number of houses in there.
Yes, sir. Could I make one comment
Yes,
in
sir.
that regard? Well, I understand and respect the will of this legislative body to change and make laws where you feel that certain issues are not being adequately addressed and your citizenry and constituency are asking you to do things. I mean, that's the process. Y'all know I've been a part of the process for a long time, but I try to see it from both sides. One of the things I would ask this group to consider, and the thing that I think has been most frustrating to me and the development community on the film mitigation issue, is we can't change rules in the middle of the game. If you're going to change the rules, you need to do it in such a manner that before properties enter the subdivision process, we understand what the rules of engagement are and what we're going to be required to do. And I would only suggest to you that I think that there has not been always consistent interpretation of some of the provisions as it relates to developments. I'm not condemning parish government or the administration or the engineers or anything else. The point that I make to you is that if you're going to make a change, please give some thought, not to necessarily make it effective 10 years from now. That wouldn't do any good. I'm only suggesting for those projects that are actually in the pipeline, I think you ought to think about that.
Well, I agree with you, and that's part of my thinking about if you're going to still build in a floodplain and you can flood, well, maybe those people should know that, and because it was in the pipeline, as you said, going forward. But, we'll get into that in a little while. But
Sure.
I just wanted to say
Yes,
thank
sir.
you. Mr. Bender?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have just one quick question for Mr. Fontenot as the Director of Planning and Development. So, Sidney, for clarification, I'm reading page 2. The comments given to the Planning Commission for preliminary consideration was, it is recommended that preliminary submittal be approved subject to the following, and you and your department listed 18 items. Just a simple, I think the answer is yes, but I want to make certain. I'm assuming that the Planning Commission vote included your 18 recommendations.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no one else in the queue, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Need a motion for introduction?
Motion by Mr. Dean, second by Mr. Thompson. Thank you. We'll go to number 5, William Lappy III, Trey, appealing the Planning Commission. Yes. Oh, did we vote on that one? Okay. Please vote.
You have to vote over there.
Mr. Thompson, I'm sorry, apparently your monitor doesn't like you. I'm assuming you were voting yes. Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Number 5, William Lappy III, Trey, appealing the Planning Commission approval on April 9, 2019 of a re-subdivision of parcel design designated as squares 310, 327, 340, 341, 360, and portions of Jones, Lovers, Gilbert, Nelson, and Amanda Streets located west of Jonas Street, north of Prevail Street and Marigny Trace subdivision, Ward 4, District 7. Mr. Grovey?
Receiving emails from Mr. Lappe and Mr. Shane, both sides have agreed to request postponement for 30 days. So moved for the postponement.
Motion by Mr. Grovey, second by... Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Thank you. Number 6, Dawn Lynch appealing the Planning Commission approval of April 9, 2019 of a tentative subdivision review of Bellevue Estates located on the south side of Hoffman Road, east of Highway 59, Abita Springs, Ward 4, District 7. Mr. Grovey?
Thank you, Chair. In receiving emails from Ms. Lynch and in agreement with Paul, Representative Joan Fussell, both they have agreed to withdraw their appeal. However, I do want to reach out to both sides and continue to work together. And honestly, this is probably my last appeal I'll be here. The parish administration and engineer staff is aware Autumn Wind subdivision, which is located just east of that Bellevue Estates that's being planned, it does have existing and significant drainage issues. I want to thank Ms. Brister and staff for working with me over the last 4 years to get these problems resolved. Some of you may remember that subdivision wasn't part of our plan until about 4 years ago. The administration has worked greatly with me, as well as the Public Works Department, to get the streets fixed and try to get the drainage fixed from problems long time coming. I do want to urge that Public Works and the candidate who are running for my seat continue to remember this subdivision and work to alleviate the problems that they have there. With the administration and Public Works, I know they will. They're not going to forget them. The Bellevue Estates is going to be a very nice subdivision, I believe, and they're going to be paying a healthy impact fee. They've already reached out to Ms. Dawn and others in the Autumn Wind subdivision. They're putting in drainage to alleviate some stuff that's going to be outfalling from there, plus the problems that we're already having on Robert Road. It's always been the goal of the administration and the council to use the impact fees in the general area or the subdivision where they're generated, and this is another excellent opportunity to use the impact fees to help fix problems that benefit the bigger area. And with that, the appeal's been removed. I have to concur with the approval.
Right. Motion by Mr. Grovey, second by Mr. Canulat. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Okay, we need a motion to adopt. Motion by Mr. Grovey, second by Mr. Canulat.
I apologize, I hit the wrong button. Mr. Tanner? Mr. Groby?
It's a yes.
Mr. Canulet? Mr. Bender? Mr. Smith? With verbal votes, motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to ordinance for adoption. Ordinance calendar number 6066, ordinance to amend section 115-3 of the Parish Code of Ordinance relative to fill mitigation. I'm going to just update the council on what we have on that, and so we'll all be on the same page. The Fill Mitigation Work Group has completed its charge to amend Section 115-3 of the Parish Code of Ordinance relative to fill mitigation. Although the task is finished, I personally believe it's only the first step in solving an important issue for St. Tammany Parish. At this time, I plan to ask for a postponement of the vote issue until our next meeting. And in the meantime, we'll call a special council meeting that will be open to the public to give the work group members and all citizens the opportunity to express their views on this situation. We will present and discuss all proposed amendments that the work group produced so that the beneficial conversation can take place before the issue is introduced for a vote at the next regular council meeting. Mr. Henderson will provide meeting minutes and proposed amendments to the council, work group, and any interested citizens for review prior to the special meeting. All work group meetings were recorded and can be viewed on the parish website. Between the special meeting and these resources, everyone should be able to review all the available information on this issue prior to the council vote. I ask that all members of the council to make an effort to attend the special meeting, as this will be the only item for discussion on that evening. There was a lot of things discussed, and if we bring it forward at a council meeting, I think it will take about 2 hours at least of a council meeting. So if we can have a special meeting and have these things presented, you will be able to receive everything that was done at all of those meetings, all the minutes, all the amendments, and then if you choose to watch it on the television, you will see the experts that came before the council, before the work group, and gave their information for us to use. There was a lot of really hard work by everyone, and I think that meeting will be called on June 24th, if I'm not mistaken, but we'll send it back out. So I ask for an motion to postpone.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Thompson, second by Ms. O'Brien. Mr. Tanner? Yes, sir.
My question is, will the information that's going to be made available at the special meeting, will that be made available to council members prior to that special meeting?
Yes, sir. It should go out this week sometime.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Number 2, ordinance calendar number 61544, ordinance amending the Parish Unified Development Code to include additional language in the definition of funeral homes. Ms. Blanchard?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Blanchard, second by Mr. Smith. Okay, we have to postpone pending zoning commission approval, though.
No, not approval, appeal.
Appeal.
It was approved by
Period.
the zoning commission, but it was just on Tuesday.
Yes.
Okay.
You have to go through the 10
Postpone pending zoning commission appeal, period.
period. Yes.
Okay. Ms. Blanchard? Second by Ms. Blanchard. First,
Second.
motion by Ms. Blanchard, second by Mr. Smith.
I already seconded.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Number 3, ordinance calendar number 6162, ordinance to extend for additional 6 months the moratorium on the opening of new streets, Angelic Estates, Ward 3, District 5. Mr. Taladano?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Taladano, second by Mr. Balisaro.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 6163, ordinance to amend ordinance CS number 18-3881, the 2018 grant budget. Mr. Taladano, we need an amendment to introduce for a special meeting on June 24th.
You have to amend and reintroduce. We have to amend and reintroduce.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Taladano,
Second.
second by Mr. Dean.
So we do need to vote because we're amending it.
We have to vote.
Yep. Please vote. Turn it on.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Then we need an amendment to introduce Mr. Taladano for the special meeting on June 4th.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Taladano, second by Mr. Balisaro. Okay. All right. Number 5, ordinance calendar number 6164, ordinance to amend the 2000 operating budget, amendment number 5. Mr. Taladano.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Taladano, second by Mr. Balisaro. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Number 6, ordinance calendar number 6165, ordinance to amend the 2018 operating budget, number 11. Mr. Taladano.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Taladano, second by Mr. Dean. Please vote.
Mr. Thompson? Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Number 7, ordinance calendar number 6166, ordinance to extend for 6 months the moratorium on property within a portion of voting precinct 914, Ward 8, District 14. Mr. Smith?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Ms. Blanchard. Please vote. My throat is killing me.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Number 8, ordinance calendar number 6167, ordinance to extend the moratorium on property abutting Highway 21 corridor, Ward 1, District 1. Mr. Dean?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Dean, second by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Number 9, ordinance calendar number 6168, ordinance to extend the moratorium on properties within the precincts 102, 112, and the unincorporated portion of precinct MD1. Motion by Mr. Balisaro, second by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Number 10, ordinance calendar number 6169, ordinance to amend the parish code to adopt the most current edition of the National Fire Protection Life Safety Code and National Fire Protection Association Fire Code, and to permit Parish Fire District 6 to adopt the most current edition of both. Mr. Fitzgerald, Mr. Tanner. Motion by Mr. Fitzgerald, second by Mr. Tanner. Please vote. Yes, sir. Mr. Grovey?
With the adoption of this ordinance, one of the things that I wanted to point out was, if I could have the representative from the fire department step up. One of the things that is noticeable about the public, I should say, the conditions of the fire hydrants are the private and public utilities that services the fire, they generally maintain their hydrants, painting them the correct codes, and with any other changes?
Our fire protection district has a private corporation, Lee Road Water Corporation, that handles the fire hydrants and the water system. Their system is built is not it's not built for fire protection. It's more for public consumption. Our rating for fire protection through PIAL, Property Insurance Association of Louisiana, they grade us by water hauling capabilities, meaning we utilize water tenders. So, but the hydrants do help us to fill when we need, but they're not it's not a fire protection system per se.
Thank you. I want to take a moment to stress to all of the private companies out there in all of our districts, get out there and maintain your hydrants, paint them, get them color-coded as best you can, and get them looking sharp. It's a visible representation of part of the overall protection for the area. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Please vote. Yeah.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Number 11, ordinance calendar number 6170, ordinance to amend the Parish Code of Ordinance, Chapter 24, Motor Vehicles and Traffic. Mr. Taladano?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Taladano, second by Mr. Balisaro. Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. For the sake of clarity, as I read this ordinance, I just want someone to explain to me why we are in the business of regulating traffic fines. Is this something that we need to enable the 22nd Judicial District to do? Steve, I see you shaking your head. Could you explain, or someone? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Staff? Yes, ma'am, Carl.
Is my microphone on? Okay. This largely has to do with traffic fines and private subdivisions, but we have a number of traffic regulations in our code. And I was working with the Sheriff's Office and the 22nd Judicial District Court and Mr. Toledano. For several years, we've been working on creating more uniform fines to make it easier for both the courts and the Sheriff's Office to enforce. And what we found is that we had some general language that made some of our fines that didn't have specific numbers way out of whack with what the ones that did have specific numbers. And I explained that in the administrative comment. So this is to try to make the fines more uniform and fair and easier to enforce from both the Sheriff's Office standpoint and the court system.
To attain. I see here a figure, though, of $50 included in this ordinance. Is that an increase in what was already existent, or that was none at all?
It's actually, in most cases, a pretty dramatic decrease. Let me pull out the exact language for you.
Normally, it's $300.
Yeah, the way it was written before, it was going back to just our general, any violation in the code, which is $300, which when you tack on the court costs is a really steep fine for what was sometimes a parking ticket. So this is really a more fair price, and in most cases, it's going to be a lowering of that fine.
Thank you for that explanation. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Bender?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Carla, another question on this. So in reading the attached explanations, I see the different court costs as of August 1st, 2016, that are currently in place. Like, for example, handicap car parking, when you add up every single agency involved in it, or funding from every agency, it's $181. So correct me if I'm wrong, looking at the staff comment in the very end of it, currently there's an extra $300 charge for anything unspecified.
That's correct.
So that means that in that one, it would be $481.
That's correct.
Okay. And for anything unspecified now, it would be $181 plus $50.
If you
we
adopt,
vote yes for this.
that's correct.
Okay. So let me ask this question, okay? So let's talk about speeding, okay? What is a current fine comparable to the $50 or the $300? Because right now we're dealing with $300 for unspecified. It's recommended we go to $50 unspecified. So what is the specified fine for speeding?
In most cases, if it's not in a private subdivision, that's going to be a state law offense, a speeding ticket. I don't know the number right offhand. I want to say it's lower than 300 for a speeding ticket.
But perhaps higher than 50?
Yes.
Okay, so let me just ask this, and this is not a gotcha question. I'm trying to get through how I'm going to vote. So a speeding ticket's going to be higher than 50?
I don't have the
I
numbers
think
right
it
in
is.
front of me, but yes, I believe that it is.
Yeah, I think they are, because
Yeah, we
people
made
are-
amendments to those last year.
Yeah, I think they're higher, okay. So can you give us an idea of something unspecified that would be $50 so we can compare it to speeding?
Overnight parking right now
Okay.
is unspecified, so it would be potentially twice as much as a speeding ticket, depending on the offense, of course.
I got you.
Parking on levees, there's just there's a few just really unrelated ones that don't have a specific fine, and I'm not really sure why.
But it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's not anything that rises to the level of speeding
No.
or exceeds speeding. It's less offensive, so to speak.
Yes, it's mostly non-moving violations.
Thank you very much for the explanation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And if I just want to point this out, that they're now payable online. You did the amendments last year, and now people can pay all of these online, so that was a big help. So this is just a continuing improvement to this system that y'all have been doing over the last year.
Thank you. Mr. Toledano?
Carlin actually answered that question. I was going to just
Thank you.
try to help Mr. Bender.
Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Number 12, ordinance calendar number 6171, ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire a parcel to expand the West St. Tammany Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant, Ward 1, District 3. Motion by Mr. Thompson.
His mic's on.
Mine's on.
His mic's on. He has a sore throat.
I'm barely talking, but that's okay. But the mic's on. I'll try again for you.
Marty seconded.
And Marty seconded. Okay, Mr. Thompson and second by Mr. Dean. Please vote.
You heard enough to second it.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
All right, number 13, number 13, ordinance calendar 6172, ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire a parcel for the Hosmer Mill Road Bridge, Ward 3, District 2. Mr. Fitzgerald. Motion by Mr. Fitzgerald, second by Mr. Tanner. Please vote.
Hosmer Mill.
Okay. Hosmer.
Mr. Toledano? Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Number 14, ordinance calendar number 6173, ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire certain parcels for the $1 Million Road Bridge, Ward 3, District 2, 3, and 6.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Fitzgerald. Please vote. Oh, Mr. Tanner, you?
It's 2 seconds.
Oh, that's okay.
How often are we gonna have to fix this bridge? Every 2 years, we get, the creek gets bigger and bigger and bigger. We might, I don't know, we'll build a causeway around there somewhere. So we don't have to-
Put a toll on it?
Yeah, put a toll
Put a toll
on
on it, yeah.
Man, it's not our fault, but I mean, that's what's happening. It just washes out. It bridge is stupid. That's all.
Bulkhead would.
How many times have you built it so far? 3, 4? How many times have you built it? How many?
I guess it's been built 3 times since I've been in.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. All right, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Number 15, ordinance calendar number 6174, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 2.03 acres from A-2 to A-4A, Ward 3, District 3.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Dean. Please vote.
Mr. Thompson? Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Number 16, ordinance calendar number 6175, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 2.19 acres from A-1 and RO to A-3 and RO, Ward 2, District 3.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Fitzgerald. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Number 17, ordinance calendar number 6176, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 3.318 acres from A-2 to A-2 and MHO, Ward 1, District 3. Mr. Thompson?
I don't think that's my district.
That's Jake.
Only reading what we have in front
I
of
know. Well, I'll move on.
Mr. Mr. Groby?
Yeah.
Motion by Mr. Groby, second by Mr. Canulet. Please vote.
We're trying to vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Number 18, ordinance calendar number 6178, ordinance to amend the parish code to extend the dead, slow, no-wake zone on portions of the Tchefuncte River, Ward 1, District 4.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Balisaro.
Second.
Second by Mr.
Tanner.
Tanner. Please vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
Voted. That's all?
I had one, yes, but they don't have, I don't know if they have it on there.
I don't
It's
see
right in
it.
front of ground by Bo Shin where it makes the turn.
So what's the difference between no wake and dead slow, just out of curiosity?
Dead slow and no wake?
Yeah, what's the difference?
Some of them can be ballasted down when you're going dead slow, and it will cause a wake. And when you're going dead slow, they stand straight up. So there is a possibility that certain sizes can cause it when the stern goes down.
They go for weight sizes on the boats on the river.
On the Mississippi River.
They got that.
Oh, I know that. I know, absolutely.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Number 19, ordinance calendar number 6179, ordinance to amend the 2019 operating budget, amendment number 4.
So moved.
Mr. Toledano, second by Mr. Balisaro. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Okay, we'll go to the off the floor agenda. I need a motion by Mr. Balisaro, second by Mr. Dean, to go to the off the floor agenda. We need everyone to vote. Please vote.
Mr. Bender? Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Okay, number 1 is resolution to amend ordinance CS number 18-3977 to make changes to the 2019 capital improvement budget and capital assets. Mr. Stavasic.
Yes. Second.
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Stefanczyk, second by Mr. Balisaro. Please vote.
You don't want to vote no.
Mr. Toledano?
Yeah. Gotta get something from.
Mr. Bender, did you hit your button again?
No, yes.
Okay. Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Okay, thank you. Meeting adjourned. I can't talk.